Shadows Under the Silent Sky, Episode 1. Before the storm, no one ever told her why she was chosen. They never tell people like her the real reason, only the parts that sound patriotic enough, heroic enough, clean enough to accept without thinking too hard. Private Isla Morgan always believed assignments were chosen based on skill and resilience. But deep inside, she suspected hers wasn't a coincidence at all. Someone in the upper levels wanted her here, in the middle of a remote conflict zone, surrounded by endless deserts and dust storms that erased every footprint almost instantly. The outpost was small, hidden, silent. It didn't appear on official maps, and even the supply convoys never stopped here unless escorted. This place was more than secret. It was forgotten on purpose. Isla stepped out of the armored vehicle, boots sinking into dry sand. The sun hadn't even risen yet, but the ground still held yesterday's heat like an open wound. An officer greeted her with eyes that looked tired enough to break. "You're Morgan." "Yes, sir." "You weren't supposed to arrive today." She blinked. The orders were clear. He didn't answer. Instead, he studied her like she was a puzzle piece that didn't belong here. Finally, he muttered, "Welcome to the end of the world." They weren't soldiers here, not in the traditional sense. Not the kind she grew up watching in recruitment videos. Their uniforms were stripped of identifying patches. Their trucks had no markings. Their radios used coded channels older than she was. Her role, officially, field medic. But unofficially, she didn't know yet. She met her new unit inside a tent, barely standing against the wind. Only 4 others. That alone was a warning. True war never needs a crowd. The commanding officer spoke quietly. "We don't ask unnecessary questions here. We don't look for answers. We survive. That's the only doctrine." Morgan felt her stomach tighten. She whispered, "Yes, sir." He corrected her sharply. "Here, call me Locke. There is no sir in a place none of us volunteered to be." He didn't smile. None of them did. Night arrived fast. The desert seemed to swallow daylight like something hungry. Isla couldn't sleep. The silence wasn't peaceful, it was alive. She kept hearing faint sounds outside, like footsteps dragging across gravel, even though no patrols were scheduled. Inside her tent, a voice suddenly whispered, "You hear that too?" Startled, she turned. Another soldier female lay awake in the bed opposite hers. Dark hair, sharp features, wide, alert eyes. "Isla Morgan," she introduced herself quietly. "Jamie," the woman answered. "Sniper." Isla nodded. "What's out there?" Jamie's voice dropped lower. "Depends on who you ask. Command says nothing. Locals say shadows." Isla frowned. "Shadows." Jamie stared at the tent wall. as if watching something move beyond the thin fabric. They don't walk like us. They don't speak. They never get close enough to identify. But they watch every night. A chill crawled up Isla's spine. That doesn't sound human. Jamie smiled slowly, painfully. Exactly. In the morning briefing, Locke spoke with tension hidden inside his throat. 2 reconnaissance boys went missing last night. Isla's breath froze. What do you mean, missing? Locke looked her dead in the eyes. They never returned. No tracks. No radio. No bodies. The room fell silent. He continued, "We are not authorized to search outside our perimeter. Command will not send retrieval." Isla's mind screamed, "That makes no sense." "You mean to tell me we're just—" Locke slammed his fist against the table. "Do not question orders." The tent went dead quiet. Even the wind outside seemed to stop. Isla swallowed her words. Jamie looked at her with that same cold, grave expression from the night before. "Welcome to the silence," she whispered. That night, Isla went outside. She shouldn't have. She knew she shouldn't. But something called her, some silent pulse in the air that her instincts couldn't ignore. The desert wind carried whispers. Not voices, more like fragments of movement. She watched the distant dunes as a faint shape flickered across her vision. Human, animal, shadow. She couldn't tell. Then something unbelievable happened. A voice, low, unfamiliar, but crystal clear, spoke just behind her ear. "You shouldn't be here." She spun around, heart hammering. No one stood there. The dark, open desert lay empty. Isla whispered into the night, "Who are you?" Silence answered back. But just before she turned to go, the same voice whispered again closer. "Someone has been waiting for you." Her knees nearly buckled. She stared into the darkness. Something watched her. Not human, not animal, not military. Something else. And it knew her name before she even arrived. Episode 2. Isla forced herself to back away slowly, refusing to turn her back to the open dunes. Her heartbeat pounded so loudly, she was certain everyone inside the base could hear it. But the sand, the wind, even the stars remained still, like the entire desert held its breath just to watch her move. When she finally reached her tent, Jamie was sitting upright, fully alert, as if she somehow already knew. "What did you see?" Jamie whispered. Isla swallowed hard. "Nothing. I mean, I don't know." Something was whispering. Jamie stared at her for a long moment. "Did it know your name?" Isla froze. "Yes." Jamie exhaled, slow and heavy, like she'd been waiting for those exact words. "They always know names. They know everything. That's why we don't go outside." Isla shook her head, trying to process. "That doesn't make sense. Who knows that much about us?" Jamie didn't answer. She just turned her face toward the tent wall again, as if waiting. The next morning, Locke acted as if nothing had happened. He treated Isla like an ordinary medic, assigning routine checks, hydration status reports, supply inventories. But every so often, he watched her. Not like a commander evaluating performance, but like someone measuring a risk. Isla finally confronted him. "Sir, sorry, Locke. Who else knew I was being transferred here?" His jaw tightened. "People above my pay grade." "But why here?" she continued. "This outpost isn't on any map. Supplies barely reach us. We don't communicate with the main territories. So what exactly is our purpose?" Locke leaned in, voice sharp enough to cut skin. "Your purpose is survival. That's all you need to know." He turned away. Conversation over. But Isla refused to let her first real question die so easily. "So the whispers last night," Locke stiffened. "You should forget that happened. So you do know what I'm talking about." "I know enough to tell you never to talk about it again." The voice knew my name, Locke. He paused, a long, painful silence. "I know," he whispered. Later, while checking medical inventory, Isla accidentally knocked over a metal latch box. A small envelope slid out. No name, no stamp, no markings. But something about it pulled her attention hard enough to override her better judgment. Inside was a single page. A typewritten message. Morgan was chosen. Do not interfere. The desert remembers. Her blood turned cold. Who wrote this? When? And why was it in a medical box? Jamie appeared behind her silently, like a shadow herself. "Where'd you get that?" Isla hid the paper behind her back. "I don't know what you're talking about." Jamie's voice dropped. "Don't lie to me. I know every item in this tent. That paper was never here before today." Isla hesitated. "Are you saying someone put it here on purpose?" Jamie's eyes hardened. "They don't need doors to get inside." That night, Isla didn't sleep. She lay awake, listening to the wind scrape the outside of the tent. Sometimes it sounded like fingers, long, thin fingers dragging across the canvas. Sometimes like footsteps. Sometimes like breathing. Just before sunrise, exhaustion finally pulled her under, until a soft whisper broke the silence. "Wake up, Morgan." Her eyes snapped open. No one in the tent was awake. Jamie was asleep. Everyone was asleep. She slowly sat up, heart hammering against her ribs. "Who are you?" she whispered. The air answered, "Your past." "What past?" Another whisper, closer this time. "The one you don't remember." Alia felt every bone inside her turn to ice. "What do you want from me?" A long pause. Then a voice so faint she almost thought she imagined it. "You." Everything inside her went cold. Episode 3. The word hung in the air long after the whisper faded. You. Not help, not answer, not listen, but you. It unsettled Isla in ways she couldn't articulate. She stared at the moving tent fabric as if something stood just beyond it, breathing in rhythm with her pulse. She grabbed her boots, shoved her feet in, and stepped outside into the cold dawn air, anything to escape that suffocating presence. Jamie was already awake, sitting near a rusted water tank, cigarette in hand, like she hadn't slept either. Isla sat down next to her. Do you hear them every night? Jamie didn't look away from the horizon. I hear them whenever they want me to. They talk to you too. Isla's voice trembled. Not anymore, Jamie said flatly. Not since I stopped answering. Isla frowned. What happens if you answer? Jamie turned, eyes sharp with warning. You already did. Isla felt her stomach sink. What does that mean? Jamie leaned closer. They don't whisper to just anyone, Morgan. They only whisper to the ones they want. Isla whispered back. And what do they want? Jamie crushed the cigarette and stood up. Trust me, you don't want to know. The Desert Patrol Locke assigned Isla to accompany the morning patrol under the excuse of field exposure. But Isla knew better. He didn't want her alone. Not after last night. The patrol walked in a slow formation, rifles pointed outward, eyes moving constantly. The desert stretched out, endlessly quiet, featureless, empty. But Isla felt something else beneath the quiet, something watching, waiting, studying. A soldier named Hale whispered, You ever wonder why they sent so few of us here? Isla answered honestly, Every minute. Hale lowered his voice. I think we're bait. Isla stiffened. What do you mean? Think about it, Hale continued. Why send a medic to a place with almost no combat activity? Why keep us isolated with barely any supplies? Isla swallowed. So we're expendable. Hale shook his head slowly. No, we're important. Too important. That's the problem. Jamie suddenly raised a fist, signaling everyone to stop. She knelt, eyes narrowed at a pattern in the sand. Tracks, fresh, but not footprints. Isla whispered, What animal? Jamie shook her head, voice brittle. That's not animal. The tracks didn't follow a straight line. They twisted, looped, even crossed over themselves like something pacing, indecisive, circling. Locke knelt beside Jamie. Same pattern as last week. No, she answered quietly. These are closer, much closer. Isla bent to see, but Locke grabbed her arm sharply. Don't touch anything. For a moment, Isla thought she saw movement on the horizon, like a figure bending behind sand dunes, then disappearing. Back at the outpost, Locke called an emergency, briefing inside the command tent. His voice shook ever so slightly, a rare crack in his composure. These patterns are not random. Something is mapping us. Isla's stomach twisted. Mapping us for what? No one answered. Jamie leaned forward. We're being studied. Someone wants to test our response times, our weaknesses, our positions. Isla forced herself to breathe evenly. And Command knows this. Locke looked away. Command knows everything. Then why aren't they helping us? Isla pressed. Locke's jaw tightened. Because they want to see what happens. Isla stared at him. What do you mean, what happens? Jamie spoke for him. They want to see who survives. Night again, Isla couldn't stop thinking about that one word. You. Whoever or whatever whispered to her. It wasn't random. It was intentional, personal. She opened her notebook, writing everything she remembered. Voice knows my name, familiar tone. Not mechanical, not radio, sounds close. But no physical presence. Jamie entered silently. What are you doing? Isla covered the notebook, trying to make sense of it. Jamie sighed. There is no sense here, only survival. Isla looked at her carefully. You speak like you've been here a long time. Jamie nodded. Long enough to bury 3 people who shouldn't have died. Isla's voice faltered. Who were they? Jamie stared off at nothing. They were chosen, just like you. The forbidden question. Isla finally asked the question she'd been avoiding. What if I don't want to stay here? Jamie laughed, broken and tired. No one stays because they want to. We stay because leaving isn't an option. What does that mean? Isla whispered. Jamie whispered back. It means you were never meant to leave alive. Isla's hands trembled. You're joking, right? But Jamie's expression said everything. No joke, no escape, only silence, only shadows, only you. Episode 4. The silence that followed Jamie's words felt heavier than the shadows themselves. Isla couldn't ignore the truth anymore. This outpost wasn't a normal deployment, not a random assignment. Someone sent her here for a reason. Someone knew something about her that she didn't know about herself. The thought made her skin crawl. She spent the rest of the afternoon checking medical supplies, anything to keep her mind occupied. But even the antiseptic smell felt tainted with dread. Every drawer she opened, every cabinet she touched, she wondered. Had someone placed something there for her to find again? Her hands shook slightly. Not from fear, at least, not only fear. From the realization that she wasn't imagining it. Someone was communicating. Someone was watching. And Jamie's warnings echoed endlessly. They always know names. That evening, Locke ordered everyone to gather near the perimeter fence, if you could call it a fence. It was more like a symbolic line of metal bars and worn concertina wire, barely holding back the desert. Locke stood at the front, looking unusually tense. We've received intelligence. Something might move tonight. Isla frowned. Something like what? He ignored her question. Jamie, I want you positioned on the South Ridge. Hale, West Patrol. Morgan, stay near the medical tent. Prepare for possible casualties. Isla snapped. What casualties? You said there's no active enemy. Locke stared at her, an unreadable expression in his eyes. There are enemies that don't need weapons. Before she could respond, he walked away, leaving Isla with a cold shiver racing down her spine. The wind changed. Isla stood near the medical tent, watching the horizon shift colors. The desert sky turned a strange shade of purple, as if the world were holding its breath. Hale walked up beside her. You feel that? What? The air. It tastes electric. Isla raised an eyebrow. You're being dramatic. No, Hale whispered. I'm being cautious. Jamie's voice crackled through the radio. Movement on the ridge. Isla froze. Human movement. Or, that's the problem, Jamie interrupted. It doesn't move like a person. Locke's voice cut through sharply. Hold positions. No one engages unless confirmed. Isla felt her pulse climbing. What the hell moves like a person but is? Jamie didn't answer. The sound. It came out of nowhere, a low humming vibration, like air passing through metal. Not wind, not machinery, something deeper. Almost like a voice without language. A sound beneath sound. Invisible, intelligent, close. Jamie's voice trembled. It's approaching the south side fast. Locke barked, Jamie, fall back now. Isla clutched her medical kit. What's happening? Jamie screamed something into the radio, but the transmission dissolved into static. Hale sprinted toward Jamie's direction, weapon raised. I'm going after her. Locke yelled, Hale, stand down. But Hale ignored him, disappearing behind equipment crates into pure darkness. Isla felt paralyzed. Do something. Stay put, run. But then she heard it right behind her. Not Jamie, not Hale, not Locke, a whisper. Don't be afraid, Morgan. Isla spun around, heart slamming against her ribs. Who's there? No one. Empty sand, empty sky, empty desert. Locke ran past her, voice cracking. Hale, Jamie, respond. Only static answered back. Isla whispered into nothing. What do you want from us? The voice came from everywhere and nowhere at once. We want what was taken, and you are the key. Her knees nearly buckled. What are you talking about? What key? Silence. The wind died. Locke grabbed her shoulders, forcing her to look at him. Listen to me, Morgan. Whatever you think you heard, it wasn't meant for your ears. She tore herself away. Then whose ears was it meant for? Locke's voice broke. Someone who's already gone. Hours later, when dawn finally arrived, Hale was found unconscious near the ridge, uninjured but unresponsive. Jamie wasn't found at all. They searched for hours, but not a single footprint led away. It was as if Jamie had stepped off the face of the earth or been pulled under it. Hale woke up with a blank stare, muttering only one thing. They took her back. Isla knelt beside him. Hale, who took her? his eyes filled with terror. Not who, what? Locke turned away, shoulders heavy, with a truth Isla could almost touch, but not yet understand. Isla whispered into the rising sun, "Jamie, where are you?" Later that morning, Isla found something tucked inside her medical bag, a folded piece of paper. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Only 4 words were written. "It begins with you." Episode 5. Isla's fingers shook around the paper as she folded it back into her pocket, half terrified to read it again, half terrified to lose it. It begins with you. She couldn't keep pretending this was random. Someone wanted her here. Someone expected her here. And whatever was happening to Jamie, whatever stole her from the ridge, it was connected to Isla Morgan before she ever set foot on this desert. She marched straight to Locke's quarters, anger and fear tangled into one. "You knew, didn't you?" she demanded. "You knew something like this was going to happen." Locke didn't look up from the map on his table, which didn't show borders or cities, just topography, wind directions, and marked coordinates like scars. "You don't understand what we're up against," he said quietly. "Then tell me." Isla snapped. "Tell me why Jamie is gone. Tell me what those things are. Tell me why they know my name." Locke finally lifted his eyes. Tired, haunted eyes. The kind soldiers earn only from surviving horrors they can never speak about. "You're asking questions that have killed better people than us," he whispered. Isla stepped closer. "That's not an answer." "Yes, it is," Locke murmured. The medical tent Hale lay on a stretcher, trembling in half-sleep. Every few minutes, his lips moved like he was repeating a prayer or a warning over and over. "They took her back. They took her back." Isla pressed a hand to his forehead, whispering, "Hale, please talk to me. Who took her?" His eyelids fluttered. Not fully awake, not fully conscious. Not men, not soldiers, shadows wearing skin. Isla felt her blood turn to ice. "What do you mean, shadows?" Hale's voice cracked with pure terror. "They come from underneath." Isla leaned closer. Underneath what? But Hale's body seized in panic as he screamed, "Don't let them touch you." Locke stormed in, grabbed Isla, and pulled her back. "He's hallucinating," Locke insisted. Isla shook her head violently. "No, he's remembering." Locke's jaw clenched. "That's exactly why you need to stop asking questions." Isla stared into his eyes, not angry this time, but heartbroken. "Jamie saved my life more times than I can count. I can't just pretend she didn't exist." Locke looked away. "That's how survival works here." Isla whispered, "Survival without humanity isn't survival, it's surrender." Alone with the sand that night, Isla walked outside the perimeter, ignoring every rule, every warning, every trembling instinct. She didn't care anymore. Jamie deserved more than fear and silence. Isla knelt on the sand, right where Jamie vanished. The desert wind brushed against her cheek like a cold hand. She whispered, "Jamie, if you can hear me, I'm not leaving you out here." For a moment, the wind stopped moving, completely still, as if the entire landscape leaned closer. Then, faintly, so faintly, she almost thought she imagined it, Jamie's voice whispered back, "You shouldn't be here." Isla's heart exploded in her chest. "Jamie, where are you? Answer me." Silence. The wind began again, slow, grieving, directionless. Isla fell to her knees, fighting tears she didn't allow herself to show inside the base. She grabbed a handful of sand, clenching it so tightly the grains cut into her palm. "Jamie, please," then, behind her, a footprint appeared in the sand. Not hers, fresh, deep, right behind her kneeling position. Isla spun around, nobody there. The footprint sank deeper, as if something invisible put full weight on it. And then another footprint pressed down in front of it. Invisible steps walking away, footstep, 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 leading toward the dunes. Isla stood up, slowly staring, unable to breathe. The footprints continued into darkness, and then stopped, right at the edge of a dune where a shadow moved. Not a shape, not a person, something darker than darkness itself, watching her, waiting for her, calling her. She whispered the only thing she could form with her shaking lips. "Why me?" The shadow shifted, barely perceptible, and a faint voice, like a memory drowning in wind, answered, "Because you were ours before you ever arrived." Isla staggered backward. "Ours? What does that mean? What are you?" The voice spoke like a sigh of ancient sand. "You know us, even if you forgot." Isla felt the world tilt beneath her. I don't remember," the shadow leaned forward, as if smiling in pure darkness. "Then it's time to remember who you were." Isla collapsed to the ground, gripping the sand as the sky above twisted with clouds she hadn't seen in weeks. And then, total blackout. Not fainting. Something else. Like the desert pulled her under. Like shadows wrapped themselves around her mind. Like a voice whispering directly inside her skull. It begins now. And episode 1 ended exactly there.